Podcast City Network.
What is up, guys? Welcome to episode 133 of the Nest Podcast. I'm your boy, Brandon, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Zach. Zach, we've got a pretty good show tonight because I see that we've got our guest popping in on here, and we are ready to talk about the NL West. Of course, the NL West has been one of the hottest divisions in all of baseball this offseason. They've had so much news, so much to get into, and I'm stoked that it's finally back to baseball season and we can start doing our little division breakdowns because we've got an action-packed next 6 weeks, and we're going to kick it off tonight with, like I said, the NL West, and we've got two special guests joining us tonight. First up, from Locked On Dodgers podcast, we have Jeff Snider, and then from Locked On Padres, we have Javier Reyes. I'm going to bring them in here now. Guys, welcome to the show.
What's up? What's up?
Hey, thanks for having me. You pulled the bait and switch. Didn't tell me Javi was going to be here.
Yeah, you didn't tell me Jeff was going to be here. You know he's my arch nemesis.
I do know that. So that's why I kind of wanted to bring both of you guys in here and talk about the NL West because your teams are the most exciting teams out there right now.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. It's probably, I mean, the division in general is really top heavy right now, but the two top teams are just, it's going to be a nuclear war, man. I can't be more excited about it.
Yeah, some of us are used to this, but some of these teams are really excited about this newfound competitiveness. So it should be a fun season.
I walked into that one. I'll give you that one.
Yeah, leave it to the Dodger fan who's been the king of that division for the last decade and a half to rub it in your face.
Yeah, that's how we roll here.
So, obviously we brought you guys on here to talk about the NL West, but before we get into any of that, tell us about your shows and what it is that you guys do. Jeff, if you want to take the lead, and then Javi, you can pick up on the end.
Yeah, so we both do shows on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's a network that was started by David Locke, he's the radio announcer for the Utah Jazz, and he had his own podcast, Locked On Jazz, as kind of a play on his name, and then he started a network on it, and now there's shows for every NBA, NHL, NFL, and MLB team, plus some college teams and some all-purpose shows. So there's about 150 shows on the network, and some of them are really good, and some of them are hosted by Javi.
See, this is the unfair part, is because I knew right when you said you let Jeff go first, I was like, he's going to make this comment because he said this before too. He's like, hey, we even have a Padres podcast if you guys are crazy.
Javi does a great job on Locked On Padres.
Yeah, everything Jeff said, and same thing with my podcast. We what's also fun about the network is we do crossovers all the time too. I've talked with Jeff something like 3 or 4 times, I think, at this point. All of them lovely. One of them, actually, we had an incredible, my power went out. I think it was over this. That was the last time I think we talked, actually, right in the middle of it, which was just remarkable, so that I had to call it by phone. But yeah, it's a ton of fun. I like to make the podcast as ridiculous as possible. I've brought on people who've done a Padres rap video before that most people didn't like. I just thought it was funny to do that. And Jeff, in fairness, rightfully roasted me for it on his show. Yeah, it's a ton of fun. And I must say, though, can I just say the intro you guys had to this was awesome. Like,
oh, cool.
the setup thing. Oh, it was killer. I was like, oh my God, I didn't really I was like, am I listening to like an Audio Slave album? This is amazing. This is like, it was just absolutely remarkable stuff. So shout out to you guys too.
Have you guys seen that Padres rap though?
No, I haven't.
Oh my gosh.
I
told Javi I was going to bring on Rebecca Black to talk about Friday after that, because it's roughly the same quality as Rebecca Black's song.
Oh, lovely.
Let's see. Yeah, thanks for the compliment on the track. Give a shout out to our boy Chase Slagle who recorded that for us. He actually lives out there in Dodgerland in California, so he recorded that for us, sent it to us, and we spliced together the little video clip for it and all that. So
Nice.
boom, nerds get together and we make cool stuff happen every now and then.
Nice.
It's true.
Now that we got all the formalities and the introductions out of the way, I want to know what you guys think about the upcoming season before we get into the division. The rules changes have definitely been something that a lot of people have been talking about. And Javi, we'll let you kick it off this time. What do you think about the rules that they're implementing in the 2021 season?
So one thing, look, let me just start off with my main point. What's the over under for people, how quickly people are going to be pissed off that the DH isn't back? Like maybe 15 games and we're all like, this is stupid. Why are we doing this? Last year was so much more fun. So that's going to be like an interesting thing to get used to again. Obviously just getting used to back to 162 games. I, for one, don't care that much about the man on second rule. Personally, I think there's 162 games. There's, it's okay if we just have it during them. I think during the playoffs actually is when I don't think I would like that as much. I think you should just let the game go and it's playoffs. Like, let's just do it.
Right.
But we're on, for the fifth time the Dodgers and Padres play after they've won, 8 of their last 9 appearances against the Dodgers. We don't need to have in the extra inning game some little man on second thing for them. We don't need to have Chris Taylor on there or whatever to give them like a little leg up because they haven't won in a while. I think that'd be better suited for the regular season because there's too many things. There's too much drama in the postseason and too much stuff is good. It's like, how in I'm talking too much already. You know how like in football, the coin toss and stuff and people get upset when one team only gets the thing. I know in this case, that's obviously very different, but it still feels like it, it still feels like one of those things where you don't want it to come down to this manipulation of the rule thing. That's completely different, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. I understand the runner on second thing. At least both teams do get a chance to do that, unlike in football where it's one or the other. But the over under on people being pissed off about the DH, I think Zach's already pissed off about it. Zach's a Cardinals fan, and they just got Nolan Arenado. They've got a lot of bats coming in that lineup now. He doesn't want to see the pitcher go out there every 9th at bat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any NL fan wants to see that. They want to see a DH that can hit bombs. I mean, I think that's what every baseball fan wants, is to see more action.
Yeah, I think a lot of people grew up NL fans and thought they were against the DH. And then last year they watched it and said, this turns out watching guys do things they're good at is more entertaining. Mm-hmm. As for the run on second rule, I wish they would at least give it an inning or two of playing by regular baseball rules, maybe say starting in the 11th or 12th inning, put a guy on second, kind of give him a chance to finish it. One thing I noticed last year was it does add a lot of excitement having a runner on second in extra innings, unless you care who wins. And that's, if it's your team playing, it's like, oh, I don't like this. It's too much randomness added. If you don't care who wins, it's a lot of fun. I found myself flipping through MLB TV and saying, oh, this game's tied in the 8th inning. I'm going to flip it here, see if they go to extra innings. It's kind of fun to see the runner on second. And I think that's part of the problem is there's a disconnect because, by definition, the powers that be don't have a rooting interest. And so there's never a game that they're watching that they care who wins. And so they just see, oh, this adds excitement to the game. But the actual fans, the vast majority of us, have a rooting interest. We're usually watching our favorite team play, and so we have a rooting interest, and so it's a disconnect between the people making the rules and the people actually watching the games.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. And to your point about people growing up being a National League fan and loving that style of baseball, and then seeing the DH. I actually got to see some history when I was living out in San Diego, and Javi, you'll appreciate this. In Petco Park, I got to see Justin Verlander get his first and second career base hit because he went 2 for 3 against you guys.
Hey, I thought you were going to say you were at the first game in Petco Park history that had more than 10,000 Padre fans at it.
Have they ever had that?
Yeah.
It's just a little bit more than the Chargers. Just a little bit more.
Right.
They didn't whenever I lived there. I left pre-Hosmer days, so that they were still pretty bad back then. But now you guys have a product to be very excited about. Let's get into that a little bit. Let's get into the National League West, because that's what we brought you in to talk about. And let's not beat around the bush anymore. Let's get into it. Of course, we wanted to start with the NL West this week because you have the defending champions in that division. Last year, we started off with the Nationals. Sorry if that's a sore spot for you, Jeff, but we started off with the defending champs last year. We're doing it again this year.
Keep doing that.
So let's talk about the Dodgers. Let's talk about the defending champs and how they got stronger this year.
Yeah, it's really hard to upgrade a team that's as good as the Dodgers were last year.
Mm-hmm.
There's not many upgrades out there. And that first one on your list, it's like how are you going to upgrade that team? Well, I guess sign the reigning Cy Young Award winner.
Yeah, I mean, they went out, they got the reigning Cy Young, who was on the Cincinnati Reds, ended up signing a deal that gets him paid more than Mike Trout, which is unfreaking believable in my opinion. But you go out, you get Trevor Bauer, but is that more of a reaction to what the Padres have done? Did you feel the need that the Dodgers had to add him because they were scared of what was happening down south?
Not even a little bit. I think obviously the Dodgers have noticed what the Padres have done, but the Padres are chasing the Dodgers, and there's no need to react. If they were looking to react, there's other moves they could have made. I think the Dodgers went into this offseason with specific plans, which were right-handed bat, a third baseman. Both of those ended up being Justin Turner. Bulk up the bullpen, and if there are upgrades available, do that. But there weren't many, if Nolan Arenado had been available to the Dodgers, maybe that's a possibility. If there's a lot of things. Francisco Lindor was on the trade market, obviously. There were things to explore, but like I said, it's really hard to upgrade a team like this. And so they weren't going to just go out and make a move to make a move. But I think the Dodgers' goal every year is to put together the best team possible. And regardless of what anybody else in the division is doing, and Trevor Bauer makes them a better team. And so it made sense to make the move.
Do you think that they overpaid for Trevor Bauer?
There's the old saying, there's no such thing as a bad 1-year contract, because, overpaying for a year. And this is really a 2-year contract. He's definitely not going to stick around for the third year, just the way the salary is structured. And so the Dodgers have never let money keep them from signing somebody they wanted to sign. People talk about Zach Greinke leaving. Zach Greinke left because he wanted too many years. The Diamondbacks were able to give him the years he wanted. It wasn't about the money. Bryce Harper, same thing. If Bryce Harper had wanted a record average annual value for a short-term contract, he would be a Dodger right now. And it's the same with Trevor Bauer. That's what they gave him. They gave him that record AAV on a short contract. And so it's really hard to overpay on a 2-year contract because, the Dodgers print money, and if they decide they're happy for the next 2 years, having that $34 million AAV hit on their luxury tax, not my money. So I don't think it's possible for the Dodgers to overpay.
Yeah, and that's a good point that some people forget, is that the Dodgers don't have a problem making money. They're probably one of the biggest markets in MLB. So for them to throw how many ever millions of bucks to Bauer for a couple of years, if it doesn't work out, I think they could care less, which is why they made this move in the first place.
Yep.
Now, acquiring Bauer, you already have Walker Buehler. You already have Clayton Kershaw. You have David Price, who should be back this season. I don't think he's opted out again. You have a spoil of riches at the starting pitcher position. Who gets the ball day one? Who gets the ball on opening day?
Clayton Kershaw. As long as he's in a Dodger uniform, he's going to be the opening day starter. It really doesn't matter. The guys who start your first 2 games, if they stay healthy the whole year, they make 33 starts. The other 3 guys make 32 starts. It's really not. Opening day starter is an honor. It's a tradition. It has nothing to do with anything other than that. So Walker Buehler could win the next 3 Cy Young Awards. And if Clayton Kershaw is still in a Dodger uniform, he would get the opening day start in 2024 or whatever. That's just the way it is and the way it should be.
Yeah, makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And I do agree with that. I was wondering if you were going to be on the Bauer train or whatever and say that he should get it because he's the reigning Cy Young.
I would be shocked if anybody in the Dodgers management has given it more than 1.5 seconds thought to making Bauer the opening day starter.
Yeah.
What about Bauer's beef with the Mets pitchers? That's been something that's been in the news lately, and I wanted to pick your brain about that because we were all listening and we were all anticipating like, oh, Bauer's either going to choose the Mets or the Dodgers. He ended up choosing the Dodgers, and now it seems like the Mets are pissed off about it.
Yeah, and you know that's fine that they want to be. I don't know. You got Syndergaard subtweeting Bauer. You got Stroman subtweeting Bauer. They both know who Trevor Bauer is and what he does on social media. Of course, he's going to respond. You know, yeah, in a perfect world, somebody would pull Trev aside and say, "Hey, you don't have to respond to everything." But but Trevor Bauer is who he is, and it's good fun, you know. And honestly, if it wasn't Trevor Bauer, who everybody hates, you know, people might have thought, you know, he does make some good points that maybe Noah Syndergaard shouldn't tell Mets fans that the fans' wives think of Noah Syndergaard when they're having sex with him. You know, like, you know, maybe people would, if it wasn't Trevor Bauer making the point, people would recognize that's probably a good point. Maybe you shouldn't treat your fans that way, Noah. You know, there's a lot of things that Trevor Bauer says that if it was anybody else who said them, people would say, oh, good point. But instead it's like, Trevor Bauer.
Sure. Yeah. He's kind of almost made himself like an anti-hero at this point, just with his Twitter stuff. And I guess if people haven't realized, that's his brand. I mean, he is a master at getting his name out there on social media. He's obviously got his momentum brand that he is throwing out there. This is his thing. He's a guy who understands how social media works. He's a guy who probably is going to have a career in some sort of thing to do with momentum after his baseball career. And this is just the way you stay relevant in today's day and age. I kind of equate it to the rappers who have those beefs or whatever, and it's all just to sell albums or whatever. That's basically what they're doing here. He's
Kanyeing.
Yeah, they're going back and forth. Marcus Stroman knows exactly what he's doing, and he's trying to stay relevant too, trying to catch that kind of wind that Trevor caught and see where it goes.
Yeah, I like the Kanye comparison because Noah Syndergaard does kind of look like Taylor Swift.
Fair point.
Sure.
Yeah, Bauer definitely believes there's no such thing as bad publicity. He definitely buys into that concept.
Yeah.
A fair point.
Yeah.
Jeff, you mentioned, of course, Justin Turner came back on his 2-year deal. That was a big signing for the Dodgers. I kind of thought that he was going to end up in Milwaukee when the whole free agency started, but give it to the Dodgers. They were able to entice him to come back. $34 million tends to be quite persuasive in that argument. Brandon Morrow returning. That one was a pretty shocking return for me. He was cut from, what was it, the Mets, right?
The Cubs is
the Cubs. That's right. The Cubs
yeah.
is who cut him. Yeah. And then, you know, he's been rehabbing and then he found his way back to Dodgerland. So do you think he's going to be able to capture the lightning in the bottle that he had back in the 2017, 2018 seasons? Or is he pretty much a work in progress at this point?
I definitely hope he's going to be able to. He sounds like he's throwing the ball really well. He feels really healthy. He said that he feels as good as he did back in 2017. And the fact is, Morrow was never a great pitcher until he came to the Dodgers in 2017. He pitched for the Padres in 15 and 16, and his baseball card stats look better. But if you look at his underlying stats, he didn't become elite until he came to the Dodgers. And I think he, for whatever reason, he's still like he said he was rooting for the Dodgers in the World Series last year. Andrew Friedman apparently reached out to him right after the Cubs released him and said, hey, there's a place for you in LA if you want to come back. And so I feel like something about being a Dodger really works for him. And so I'm hopeful that he can get some of that magic back. I don't know if he's going to be throwing 100 again, but the Dodgers have a history of helping guys be the best version of themselves. And I think he saw that. And that's part of why he wanted to come back.
Yeah, you talk about guys not having elite stats or whatever prior to being there. The only season that Trevor Bauer really was elite was in a 60-game season. So we'll see what he does in a Dodger uniform. Do you think this is the last season for Clayton Kershaw in LA?
I don't. He said yesterday that he has a few more years in him.
Mhm.
And I think in that same interview, he said Justin Turner had to come back to the Dodgers. He is a Dodger, that it wouldn't be right if he was anywhere else. And I think Clayton Kershaw knows that the same exact thing applies to him. It would be, he wouldn't look right in any other uniform. The only other uniform I could see him wearing is if he went to the Rangers to be closer to home, but the Rangers aren't anywhere near competition. And I don't think Clayton Kershaw is actually interested in going from, by then it'll be nine straight National League West Division champions after 2021. That was for you, Hobby. He's not going to be interested in going to a team that's not competitive. And so if Clayton Kershaw is still pitching, it's going to be with the Dodgers. Andrew Friedman has said that he wants Kershaw to play his entire career in Dodger blue. And so both sides want it, and they're going to make it happen.
Yeah, I can see Kershaw sticking around for the remainder of his career. He's gotten used to just the way that the Dodgers play. He's gotten used to making the playoffs all the time. If they're okay with what he's done in the past, giving up games and whatever and losing important games, then I think they're going to be okay with whatever comes at the end of his career, whether it be, his velocity falls off or whatever. Who knows what's going to happen? But I think they're just going to be okay with it. He's cemented himself in that organization for sure.
Yeah, even if he ends up as a fifth starter, if he wants to keep playing baseball, it'll be with the Dodgers.
Yeah,
he's not too bad.
Yeah. Now you mentioned the 9 consecutive West Division titles and all that stuff, but there is one team out there in the division that could challenge that this year, and of course that's the San Diego Padres. And Hobby, we brought you on to provide the San Diego Padres analysis. We've heard from the Dodgers, we've heard from what they've been doing, and they're parading around town as the kings of the West. But is there a new king out there?
I mean, here's the thing when you look at it. The way I look at it, so let's start with like the vegetables, the bad part that we don't all look forward to, which is the bad news. And the worst thing that happened to the Padres was the Dodgers signing Trevor Bauer. One, just because he might be awesome. Like, I know that there's a lot of Jeff just alluded to, he's the guy that, he might make a good point to. I think he's basically just a jerk for the most part. I think that his politics and stuff are really bad, and I think that it's just a little bit wrong. But I do think that there is, in terms of him as a ball player, him as a pitcher, sometimes I like to get into comments here. I think shout out Brad Shadler. That was funny. It just got me in the middle of this.
Sorry about that.
I think that I love it, honestly. I think that from just as a pitcher, though, some people let their feelings towards Trevor Bauer as a person, I think, get in the way of the fact that, yes, he's only had 2 technically like really good seasons, but there's been some underlying stats before that. He's been a high strikeout guy. He was a high draft pick for a reason. And yeah, I mean, he's not the first guy to fall apart. Like, he gets traded to Cincinnati. He was bad in 2019, right? Then he comes back this year, and you have the criticisms, you have the spin rate and the foreign subs and stuff. I get that. But if you're the Dodgers, it's just like, okay, who cares? If he's a 2.9 ERA guy, gets you over like 230 Ks, who cares? You know what I mean? The Dodgers are basically just taking advantage of the fact that there's a lot of teams in baseball that are like, oh, okay, we don't want to sign guys, and every team could do, at least to a smaller extent, what the Dodgers are doing, and while they do have the Avengers Endgame budget pretty much like consistently, don't get me wrong, it's, how do I put this? They just take advantage of the fact that other teams are not trying nearly as hard, and their thing is, all right, we'll take this guy for 2 years at like probably worth more than what he is actually worth, like his $40 million salary, probably getting paid more than that, but it's only for 2 years, and they're like, who cares? If he stinks, he stinks. We don't have to worry about the third year, and we're also the Dodgers. And while they do, like I said, they have the Avengers budget, they don't just have that. There's a lot of really good management with the Dodgers. You think about their prospects, and it wasn't too long ago that I remember they're just calling up Cody Bellinger, and they're like, this guy's got a high ceiling or whatever. And all of a sudden he's the rookie of the year, and he's a monster, right? And then he has a down year, which was great. So it's not just money for them, for why they've become what they are. They aren't just being like, we're taking every free agent. They're very smart, and they still have all these great prospects to look forward to. Gavin Lux, I'm pretty sure, is still, I would have to ask Jeff about that, what his status is, but he'll be coming up at some point, I imagine, and making some.
He's a
good
2021
moves.
MVP. That's his status.
Yeah, we'll see. But in terms of the Padres, let's as Mr. West mentions, let's talk about them. So the only bad thing that really happened for them this offseason, like I said, was Bauer, because he could be amazing. He could also be not good. But for the Padres, I mean, I just saw your little notes. I mean, come on. It was because if you take into account the Padres franchise history and you take into account that this is not them, this is not what they do. They do not trade in the span of 24 hours. They do not trade for Blake Snell and Yu Darvish, and then do not also sign Ha-Seong Kim, a guy who, by the way, if he was the only move that some other teams made in the league, that would have been like a super, like that's what that their teams are talking about. Teams like the Blue Jays, teams like, I don't know, Cleveland, teams like that are maybe, fringe contenders that if they sign them, that would be the biggest move for them. Instead, it's like the third biggest, maybe fourth biggest move that the Padres made. If you count Tatis, Darvish, and Snell, it's probably the fourth biggest move they made. The way I see it is, the only thing I think about the division race is, I don't think that people should be acting like it's inconceivable that the Padres are going to beat them for the title. I don't think they should be acting like it's inconceivable that they can't beat them in the playoffs. This is, after all, the team, like you mentioned earlier, that got beat by the Nationals and Howie Kendrick. This isn't, in a shortened season, not to take too many shots. I don't like taking shots, believe it or not. I leave that to Jeff. He's honestly a little bit better at it than I am. That it's not like this team has been known for golden standard of consistency in the playoffs. So I don't like that perspective of it, that we're just plugging them in to make the World Series. But I don't know, man. It's so good for baseball. I get so excited every time a new move comes out. And I was reading an article the other day that basically was saying, like, Yankees, Dodgers, it brought up the revenue of both of those teams being such juggernauts at a time period, right? And that could happen here with the Padres and Dodgers. And as someone just said here, Craig James, I like these comments, man. This is so cool. How big of an impact will the Blake Snell addition make on the starting rotation? A pretty good impact. He's pretty good at baseball. Yeah. And I wonder if he's going to have like a little bit of a thing to prove, because, it's kind of been, I don't think it's been forgotten, but one thing is, Game 6, he gets pulled a bit early. That was the whole drama of the World Series, honestly, aside from Game 5 being the most insane ending I've ever seen in my life, to be perfectly honest with you, with the exception of that, like, Cleveland-Chicago World Series Game 7. I think he might have a little bit of a thing to prove. I think he's going to be like, all right, this team's going to let me loose. I want to go out there and be awesome. And the Padres won't be taking him out after 72 pitches. That's right. Yeah. He killed me in my fantasy baseball team last year. I'm not going to lie. I was just like, what the heck? Taking him out after 2 innings. This is terrible. I know it's the regular season, but still.
That's the Rays way, man.
Yeah, it's the Rays way, man. And you look at their rotation, got Darvish, you got Snell. You still, hopefully, I don't trust the Padres when it comes to stuff. I don't trust any teams with this stuff. Hopefully, Dinelson Lamet is healthy. And then there's guys like, we don't know fully, you got Joe Musgrove, right? And I think that he's an interesting high upside guy. He was a guy that was floating in the trade deadlines last year to be a really great, I think, back of the rotation starter. And Padres last year, they did pretty good filling out the back of the rotation with Zach Davies, right? Who they traded for Yu Darvish, but he turned out pretty good. So I trust Preller's judgment for ironing out the back of the rotation. And then Chris Paddock is the interesting one, as Jeff once called him Bumgarner Jr. I think he's a really great number 4, number 5, especially for now, at least. We'll have to see what he does. We have to see if he can start throwing curveball a little bit better. But, and it's, just mixing up his pitching variety, I think, because the fastball was absolutely just way too straight last year. He was getting killed. He got killed by the Cardinals, who hit maybe a total of 2 doubles all regular season. I'm pretty sure they have nobody except for like Goldschmidt. Now they have Arenado, but in the playoffs, they certainly did not have a good offensive team, and he's getting lit up by them. But I think he's a good, everyone who plays fantasy baseball out there, to put it in that perspective, he's probably not going very high this year. Take a little bit of a flyer on the guy. I mean, he was really awesome in his rookie season, and that his changeup is still, based on his stats, people still have not figured that out yet. So there is still hope for Chris Paddock. And then you still got some guys in the system like Mackenzie Gore, still probably the best pitching prospect in all of baseball. If there's something crazy that happens in the regular season, Preller and this farm system, they still have guys that they could trade around. I do not think they would trade like Mackenzie Gore or Luis Campusano or CJ Abrams, but they have the ability to make moves if they need to. So it's going to be really interesting. I think the first time they play is, I think it's April 16th, I believe, is their first match between the Dodgers, first series against the Dodgers. I have to check that again. I have to check the schedule. I know they play the D-backs opening day, but I don't know. It's basically been the dream off season. And when you consider that the Padres never make moves like this, it started in 2015 with the crazy Justin Upton, Matt Kemp, Will Byers stuff. And now it's all of a sudden kind of nuts, whatever the opposite of snowballed is, into what they have now. And it's just really exciting. And I genuinely can't wait. They're going to make a whole 162 games super exciting. And we're going to have a true Clash of the Titans matchup, I think, in the NL West.
I know Padre fans are hoping that he does become a Mad Bum 2.0, especially when it comes time for playoff heroics. And let's talk. You talked about the starting pitchers and some of the relievers, but let's talk about the big one. Let's talk about the big move that the Padres just pulled off. And as of today, it was official. And you guys locked up Fernando Tatis Jr. for life. And what do you think about that? Are you pretty pumped about Nando being there in San Diego for the rest of his career, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, it's okay.
It's okay.
Of course, it's great, man. Are you kidding? I'm thrilled. It is a beautiful thing when you have not just your favorite team has a good player, but also a just objectively super exciting player and personality that you like. And that's what Tatis is. I mean, I talked about it on the pod. The deal, if you make it now, I know a lot of Padres fans felt the same way. They were saying, earlier you sign him, the earlier they do the extension, the less you might have to potentially pay him on later, whatever. If the salaries blow in, say, 5-6 years, that he could have made 490, whatever the heck. I don't do the salary stuff. I'm not good at all that stuff, but it's exciting. And he's going to be there for the next bunch of while. It's really because one of my takes, actually, which probably isn't popular with all the Padres people, is I wasn't like, I wanted them to extend him, but it wouldn't have been like the most insane thing if I knew somehow that they're thinking, hey, in fairness, he hasn't played a full 162 games yet. If they were a little bit cautious and they were like, we can take advantage of the fact that we don't have to pay him yet, that wouldn't be like some crazy move. It's really kind of remarkable, by the way. I think this has gotten lost a little bit, that they brought him up earlier than they needed to back in 2019 without sacrificing that extra surface time here. Like, the Padres have been doing a lot of things that not other major league ball clubs are doing, aside from just paying. You even look at the way when the pandemic starts, they paid all of their employees through, I think it was until October, and they're one of the first teams to announce that. So the ownership it's very fun to dunk on ownership, and basically every team in the league. You look at teams like the A's this offseason, it's like, are you kidding me? Marcus Semien, what the heck? 1 year, $1 million over 10 years. Are you serious? It's just insane seeing what teams are doing. And then the Padres are like, no, we're not actually going to do that. We want to be a thing. And I wonder, part of me speculates, are they thinking, there's no other professional team in San Diego? Obviously in California, there's plenty. It's a pretty big state from the last time I checked. But part of me wonders, no Chargers anymore. The Aztecs, San Diego State University, that's basically it in terms of, big time guys. And so it's really fun to dunk on ownership and stuff like that, like I was saying. But with the Padres, I don't think you can really do that. It's exciting. I guess you could say it's a little tiny bit risky, as someone just pointed out in the comments. There's full no trade clause for 14 years. Definitely. I mean, that's part of the deal that they negotiate and stuff like that. But if he is legit, if he does just what he did in 2020, if he does what he did in 2019 to an extent, it's going to be one of the top 5 players in baseball, and he's going to be amazing. And on top of that, has to be built into this is his marketability. There's a reason this guy is on the MLB 21 The Show. There's a reason this guy is in that G Fuel. I forgot what the heck the commercial is. I always forget. There's a reason why Adidas has that commercial, that very self-aware, irreverent kind of commercial with all the guys who are sitting on their lawns and be like, this Tatis guy, I don't like him. That kind of making fun of this whole unwritten rules thing, and Tatis 3-0 and all that stuff with against the Rangers after they purchased the state of Texas. I think that's part of it too. They're thinking we might be having the guy who's not only is the superstar in terms of his caliber and player on the field, but also this guy who, not to dunk on Mike Trout, but I think baseball wishes Mike Trout had the personality that Tatis had. I think that they did. And then it's not his fault. The guy likes playing baseball and then going home and tweeting his little airplane emoji to wherever city they're playing at next. That's it. Good for him. But I think that they behind the scenes wish, man, I wish this guy was he was the unwritten rule breaker or whatever. And Bryce Harper kind of was that for a little bit, but he hasn't had the same consistency as Mike Trout, obviously. So hopefully Tatis is that guy. It's super exciting. We're going to see what happens, but I don't know, man. When I heard the news, I was like, this is just a perfect offseason. Like, and the scary part is I'm not 100,000% convinced they're just going to stand pat. Like, they could do something right now. Would it be a big move? I don't think so. But the fact that they could just go and sign somebody during this recording just speaks to a testament to how good of a hire AJ Preller has been, what they've been doing to turn this organization around. The Padres, the San Diego Padres. Yeah. That's the team we're talking about right now. Just put that in perspective, everybody. That's the team we're talking about as being the big winner of the offseason and signing guys to 14-year extensions. So It's really been nuts and really been exciting.
It definitely will make for a fun division down the stretch. The one thing that really would scare me if I was a Padres fan is this figure right here, that from 2029 to 2034, 36 mil a year. That's pretty lofty whenever he's getting up there into his 30, 31, 32, 33-year-old seasons. Mm-hmm. If he's at all injury prone, that is going to be an albatross right there. So
it could be.
We'll see what happens. Time will tell. Obviously, the deal with Mike Clevinger coming to the team, that was a big acquisition in the middle of last season whenever they were getting ready to make their push. That Tommy John surgery, keeping him off the field in 2021, that could be a big one. Is Tommy Pham going to be able to bounce back in this season? He kind of regressed a little bit last season. Is he going to be able to return to 2018 form? A lot of question marks still there in Padre land.
Yeah, and especially with the Tommy John surgery thing, like I was alluded to before, with Lamet and how I don't trust the Padres. There was like they were like, oh yeah, Clevinger, it's just some bone chips. He needs a scope. And I'm like, oh, okay, good. Maybe he'll miss some time, but he'll be okay. Tommy John surgery. So that's like, you know what I mean? So like, that's why I'm a little bit hesitant to assume that we're getting Lamet back. It seems like it. I've seen that he's been showing up at certain places, but I just want to say, like, it wouldn't surprise me if someone is like, yeah, he's out for the first month or two or something like that. But hopefully that's the worst case scenario, right? And that's the crazy part is Mike Clevinger, that trade that happened at the trade deadline, that was like oh my God, the San Diego Padres just did the greatest move they've done in years. This is insane. This is franchise altering. And AJ Preller was like, you guys have no idea. You have no idea what I'm scheming behind the scenes for later. Assuming he knew somehow that the Rays were going to be like really wanting to get rid of their best pitcher after being
who could have guessed that the Rays would trade their best pitcher when he started?
He was like, yeah.
Whoever could have guessed that?
Yeah. And then Darvish, he was just like, you know what? We're reloading. Doesn't matter. Move on. Full steam ahead. I don't care. And then we'll have Clevinger back next year. And they're not paying him, that much this year. So that's good in terms of the money incentive. They'll be paying him more next year.
One thing I've learned is that every team that's ever traded for Darvish definitely won the World Series.
Okay.
Now
like I said, Jeff is really good at this.
Now we've talked about the Dodgers, we've talked about the Padres. Now we've got to talk about the biggest offseason acquisition, or I guess coming back, of the entire division, and it's Buster Posey is back, baby.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Does that even matter?
Nope.
Are the San Francisco Giants even relevant anymore?
Yeah, I think that's going to bump the Giants from third place to third place.
Yeah, that's about where I've got them too.
It's cute. I mean, hey, the Giants they were not bad last year. Like, let's keep that in mind. Like, they're a really smart organization. I know Jeff probably knows that, especially with their history, but they know what they're doing. They're not going to be a contender. They might be like a little bit interesting if they just weren't in the NL West right now. You know what I mean? They're just, unfortunately, they're going to be the appetizers, for the Dodgers and the Padres, I think. But smart team, quirky team that I like. I like Yastrzemski. I like Silvano. I like that they just brought in Aaron Sanchez, I believe, on a 1-year deal. They have all these 1-year deals that they just decided to do. Fun team. Ben Kaspic over at Locked On Giants does a really good job for us over on the network too. I love his podcast. Great Twitter follow too, by the way. But hey, let them enjoy him. It's like what they did with Hunter Pence. They're like, all right, bring him back. He's going to have his little final time here. He was a beloved player, one of my favorite players in all of baseball too for the last few years. And good for him. I mean, Buster Posey's really good, and he's been a great player for them for a long time. So shouts to the Giants. I don't want to be too mean, but yeah.
You guys want to know the best thing about Hunter Pence? So his middle name is Andrew, and he actually went by Andrew until he's a teenager. He was Andrew Pence. And it wasn't until he was in high school and he realized that Hunter Pence sounded like underpants. And so he decided to start going by his real. That's 100% true. I'm not making that up. Hunter Pence started going by his real first name, Hunter, so that his name would sound like underpants.
I like him so much more now.
Yeah, times 1 million. Are you kidding me? This is great.
It's impossible not to like Hunter Pence. Everything he does, it looks like he's doing it for the first time.
I mean, that gif of him swinging and then go, as he lets go of the bat is one of my favorite baseball gifs. It's just look at his swing. He looks like a dork, and he's really good. I actually think he had like a stretch of like 3 or 4 years where he was like one of the most underrated outfielders in baseball. Honestly, like, and yeah, then they DFA'd him. It was sad.
He did get old and bad at baseball in their defense. You know?
Well, and that's kind of the trend with the Giants is they're getting old. You know, on their opening day roster, they have 10 hitters that are over 30, and 4 out of 5 of their starting pitchers will be 30 or older. That's not good. You know, you talked about the 1-year contracts. That's why, because they're all getting old. They can't get these lengthy contracts like Tatis is getting. You're not going to sign a 30-year-old to a 15 million year contract.
Yeah, the big market Padres are just swooping everybody up. You know,
That's
big
it.
market Padres. Yeah.
When the Giants hired Farhan Zaidi to be their GM, somebody asked me if I was sad the Dodgers were losing Zaidi. I said, it's not so much that they're losing him. I'm sad that the Giants are getting smart, that the Giants are hiring a smart person. And that's absolutely the case. They are in a much better situation, even though the results on the field aren't going to be much different in 2021 than they've been the last few years, but they are in a much better place as an organization than they were a couple of years ago, because Zaidi knows what he's doing, and they're going to be a good team. Not this year, but sometime in the next few years,
They'll be back.
They're going to be competitive again. Right around the time that Tatis gets traded, because the
no. This one I won't allow. Okay, no, that's just messed up. Shut up.
I do think you needed one more bullet point on your Padres list, though, which is, can Eric Hosmer and or Will Myers be good 2 years in a row for the first time in their careers? Because neither of them has ever been good 2 years in a row.
Mm-hmm. That's a fair point.
That's both
seems
a
like
shot,
they're really counting on that.
That's both a shot, but something I've been talking about too, where it's like, in fairness, like I'm actually a little bit slightly more worried about the Padres. I would even say, you know, Jake Cronenworth, like let's, you know, rookie of the year type of a finalist. Like in fairness, small sample size. Like Hosmer is the launch angle stuff legit. Will Myers is, I don't know, is it just that he is the contact stuff legit? Because he hit for a high average for once, which was insane. But it's funny because Will Myers was like just so much fun to watch last year. He had so many great hits. The walk-off in the Mariners series was awesome, in the doubleheader. So we're going to have to see. But if those two guys aren't as good as they were last year, Jerks and Profar isn't able to do what he does last year, great end of the lineup type of bat. If he can't do that, what happens to the Padres? If Ha-Seong Kim for some reason is a good, shut up, Brad. Let's just stop it. If Ha-Seong Kim isn't the great, star that they kind of maybe want him to be from that KBO league, then it's not impossible that the Padres offense takes a little bit of a step back this year. Not worried about Tatis, not worried about Machado. Honestly, I'm not really that worried about Pham. I actually really think Pham is going to be fine. I think this was a weird season. He starts off a little bit slow, then he gets hurt. But I saw him in the playoffs. Bat still works right. Works right. That's a really ambiguous way of characterizing it. But I think he's still okay. He had some really awesome years for both the Cardinals and the Rays, obviously. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how he steps back up to it. But yeah, Hosmer and Myers, those are two guys that I'm looking out for. And if Cronenworth, if he's literally the same thing as last year, if he's a 270, 350 type of guy, great. And he's at a really low price, obviously. So if that's the case, then that's awesome. And Cronenworth, are we Cronenworthy? We'll have to see. But yeah, Hosmer and Will Myers, I know that's a shot by Jeff. I know. He likes to do that, but it is actually
that was just a realistic
critique.
point. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I feel good about the Dodgers going in is because the Padres are counting on more to go right. The Dodgers last year, Bellinger and Muncy both had off seasons.
Yep.
And the Dodgers still were on 116 win pace. And we're talking about, the Dodgers signed Bauer, he's only won one Cy Young award and only been great in 2 seasons. And the Padres trade for Joe Musgrove, who, his next good season will be his first. And so it's like, while the Padres definitely have potential to challenge the Dodgers, it would have to be a case of everything going right for the Padres and a whole lot of stuff going wrong for the Dodgers.
I think that the Bellinger thing, I'm scared of that, man. I mean, there was Jeff had a fun bit when someone was like, they messaged him or it tweeted at you or something like that, where they were like, "Sit, Cody, what are they doing?" And I'm like, did he win the MVP last year? Like, it's the attention span and the memory of some people. So I think, well, sometimes people are projecting the Padres on top, which my thing is, I wouldn't do that. I just don't think it's like inconceivable. But I do think, yeah, we have to keep in mind Cody Bellinger is going to be back with a vengeance. He had a great playoffs, had great moments. I mean, the catch. I mean, I joked on Twitter, like, I was like, is this what watching Before Sunrise for the first time is like? Just the ultimate highest of highs. And then all of a sudden, oh my God, it just crashes down at the very end. It was a great catch and it was a great play. And I thought, who was the pitcher that was pitching, Jeff, at that time?
Brusdar
Gratterall. I actually thought, I would be hypocritical not to say, no, the Padres, you guys aren't allowed to do your super celebrating stuff. It's super exciting. We love you. But Manny Machado, you're not allowed to then get on Brusdar Gratterall.
Are you implying that Manny Machado might be a little bit of a jerk?
I don't know what you're talking about, dude. I think he's got a fully clean slate.
We got a Red Sox fan in that top left corner. Justin Pedroia might have a thing or two to say about that.
Yeah, I don't really care too much for Manny Machado, but yeah. He ruined baseball for a lot of people.
San Diego I like is Orsillo. Jeez. I mean, hey, Orsillo is a king. I love his gif, the come on in gif. But
yeah, I missed him too. He was Boston Red Sox before he was San Diego Padres play-by-play guy.
Yeah, I thought it was
miss him.
Let people celebrate a bit. If I saw my player make that catch to make sure that I just give up this crucial home run to another guy, I wouldn't contain anything I would be losing my mind. I'd be like, yes, Cody, yes.
And the Padres of all teams should understand that. It was like in 2017 when the Astros made fun of Charlie Culberson for being excited about hitting a home run in the World Series. And then you got Carlos Correa like taking a victory lap and blowing kisses to ponies or something after he hit a home run. Like, just be consistent, people.
Puerto Rican power. Love Correa. Great guy. Guilty of innocent of all charges.
Bird Bones Gumby.
We mentioned Gratterall briefly, and I just want to touch on that a little bit. Does he have the ability to dethrone Kenley Jansen for that closer position? Because he can hit 100 almost every pitch. And sure, he might not have a lot of control, but I think if he works on his craft, he can be their closer.
I'll tell you what. Kenley Jansen sucks.
Right.
I don't think it's a control thing. I think Kenley's going to be better. Kenley had COVID last summer, and speaking as a large person, I don't think Kenley was fully recovered from COVID. I think he was still feeling some effects.
Has he had COVID for the past 3 seasons?
It's only, I mean, he was great. Yeah, I guess 2018 is when he started going downhill. I don't think sucks is accurate, but I understand that, you're a podcast. You have to engage in hyperbole sometimes. But
keep it going, man. Keep it going.
Brusdar Gratterall I don't think it's a control thing. I think for some reason, and I actually have a theory on the reason, he doesn't strike out a lot of guys, even though he throws 500 miles an hour. And if you look at his delivery, and people always talk about, it's like an easy 100 that he's throwing. And I think that's part of the problem, because if you look at Aroldis Chapman, when he's throwing 100, he's striding so far towards the plate and getting that arm and whipping it. And so when he releases the ball, he is about a foot closer to the plate than Gratterall is when he releases the ball. And a foot doesn't seem like a lot, but
it's huge.
When you're talking about that distance, so there's a stat called perceived velocity. And Chapman's perceived velocity is right there. When he throws 103, it looks like 103. When Gratterall throws 101, it looks like 96 or 97, which is still hard, but it's not that wipeout stuff. And so
that's normal in big leagues right now is 96.
So I don't know if, I've actually reached out to some Dodgers player dev people, and I've gotten kind of mixed responses about whether, I don't know if Gratterall could change his delivery to extend further and add some perceived velocity. He might even add real velocity. If he was striding farther and throwing from closer, he might add real velocity and perceived velocity, but that also might mess everything up. And so it's really hard to see. I don't think Gratterall is near the top of the list of guys to dethrone Kenley Jansen. I think Kenley will be the closer to start the season, and I do expect him to be better than last year. I don't think he'll be back to 2016, 2017 form, but I think he's going to be fine. And I think behind him, there are guys ahead of Gratterall who are more likely. Guys like Trinan's been a closer in the past. He didn't strike out as many guys last year as he should have either, but I don't think it's as big a deal with him. Brandon Morrow, if he's back to form, he's been a closer. And so Gratterall, I'm not putting all that on him. And I wouldn't be surprised if they went with somebody like Dustin May at closer, who also throws 100 and, maybe May, if he knew he's only throwing 18 pitches, would come in throwing 103. And he does have that long extension and the crazy movement. Thanks Manny Machado for those couple gifts too. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Kenley's not their closer at the end of the year, but I don't necessarily think it's going to be Gratterall.
Yeah, I'll say this before we move on. There is a reason that the Boston Red Sox didn't want Gratterall in that trade, so you're welcome for that, because he's not everything that he was cracked up to be.
And the reason is because they got a lot of public backlash for trading Mookie Betts, and they needed more prospects than they were getting.
It worked out in our favor because it's gonna be good. I think Jeter Downs is going to be a good player. I think Verdugo has already solidified himself as a starter in Boston, and he's endeared himself to the fan base. And Connor Wong is a great catching prospect. We'll see what happens with him. But
you recovered really well from the Mookie Betts slight just now. I give you credit, because not many people would survive a blow like that.
I've been practicing for 2 years with getting heat with this Mookie Betts.
A thing or two about Mookie, huh?
Yeah. All right, Arizona Diamondbacks. They're basically staying idle. They haven't really done anything this offseason that impresses me. They're just kind of content with being the team that they were last year. Madison Bumgarner, will he have a bounce back season, or is he washed up? Pretty much think that he's at the end of his rope now, just collecting a paycheck. Marte is about the only one that I see that could truly have a solid bounce back year. He struggled mightily in 2020. I don't know if it was the COVID season that got to him or whatever, but he was fourth in MVP voting in 2019. If he can get back to that would at least give them a little bit of a spark. And then as far as acquisitions, they've signed Asdrubal Cabrera and Joakim Soria. So that doesn't even come close to adding what either of your two teams have done in the offseason.
Nope, not at all.
Yeah, they pulled both of those guys off I thought he was retired pile.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not very impressive. And then we have the dumpster fire that is the Colorado Rockies. Of course, they are now paying the St. Louis Cardinals $50 million to let them have Nolan Arenado. Wild move that happened. I'm sure you guys as NL West fans were like, well, that's one less team to even remotely consider being a worry. And then, Ian Desmond opts out for the second consecutive year. Could we see more players traded before the deadline, specifically Trevor Story, because he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year? You can't imagine that he's going to want to come back to Colorado. So they might do like what the Red Sox did with Mookie Betts and try to flip him for some prospects in return.
Yeah, it's kind of impressive that Ian Desmond didn't opt out of the season until 3 weeks after the Rockies front office did.
That's absolutely true. He was hanging on for a while this year.
If anyone shows up to that park to watch a Rockies game, are they going to just wear paper bags on their heads or what? Like, I just don't understand that.
Hey, if they have fans at the stadiums, I'll be there on April 1st because the Dodgers are playing there on opening day, and I'll be there, and it won't be a paper bag I'm wearing. But it's going to look like Petco Park. How many Dodger fans are there?
At least roast the Chargers for their show. The Petco, the fan base is coming back,
football.
Baby. Slam Diego's legit. But the Chargers, they can't even fill up a soccer stadium. It's ridiculous. The Rockies thing is honestly one of the shouts to the Cardinals once again, poaching another star from within our division. Shout out to them. Good job by them. They were like, we like good baseball players, and we also like it when we don't have to pay as much, and we like not giving up anything. So must have taken a lot of brains for that deal from them, clearly. It's just, are the Rockies actually the Miami Marlins of the skies? No, because I think the Marlins actually have at least a semblance of a plan. So no. To answer that question, I guess a little bit quickly.
Funny that they're both expansion teams in the same year, though.
Sure, that's true. I mean, geez, dude. I got a soft spot for Ian Desmond that I don't want to get into the whole why I started liking Ian Desmond years ago. It basically, bottom line is I got
Is
into
it
a
the
fight.
rugged good looks?
Yeah, that's certainly like a part
That
of
is
it.
a good looking dude.
Yeah, he is a good looking dude. He's killing it. It basically was a fantasy baseball thing, and I got into an argument with my friend saying he was great for fantasy, and he was an idiot and said no. So he's been one of my favorites for a long time. The Rockies are really sad. So there's some teams that are bad in baseball, you know, like the Marlins, like the Detroit Tigers, like the Orioles, teams like that. But there's at least like a semblance of hope with them. What the heck are Rockies fans thinking right now? What do they do?
Right
They're
now,
just like, are you kidding me?
The postseason odds have them at a 0.1% of making the
And
playoffs
that's
this
way
year.
too high.
Lower
And
than
that probably is too high. Yeah, they couldn't justify giving them a 0%.
Right.
Yeah, their GM said that they were going to use the savings from Arenado to focus on re-signing Trevor Story. I think he forgot that it takes two to tango. And why in the world would Trevor Story consider signing with the Rockies? He's going into, I mean, there are going to be a lot of shortstops on the market. If, you know, we'll see if the Mets extend Lindor during the season, see if the Dodgers can work something out with Corey Seager before the end of the season. But there's going to be shortstops on the market. But there's no reason to think, I mean, the Rockies have no major league team and no farm system. Like, because you didn't even get anything good for Nolan Arenado. So why in the world would Trevor Story consider signing with the Rockies when he saw what happened to the last guy who signed and committed long-term to the Rockies? So I think as soon as Jeff Bridich has one phone call with Trevor Story and Story says, hey, by the way, shove it. I think Story is gone by the trade deadline in July because they'd be well, maybe this is a reason they'll keep him because they'd be stupid to keep him. So maybe they will. So I didn't think that all the way through. And I realized, they might do the stupid thing as they've done repeatedly in the past.
He could be a super fun trade deadline guy though. Like it's going to be, that would be a genuinely like super exciting thing. For shout out for again, I don't know why I've been all into fantasy baseball today. I don't know why it's out of my mind, but just if you're drafting, be careful about drafting Story because I don't know exactly what happens if he leaves Coors Field. And I think he'll be good, especially his glove, really good glove. Underrated part of his game, but I would just be careful that if you think you're drafting like that 30-30 guy, just be careful for all my guys out there. But he would definitely be a name to watch out for. On the market. I don't know exactly what team would be trading for him right now, especially since there's a lot of free agents short side. I'm just looking at free agents in general for next year and so many fun names, good names, but also just a lot of fun names. Like Scherzer's a free agent apparently. Totally forgot about that. Your boy Kershaw, Verlander. I mean, it's gonna be a fun one. It's gonna be a fun one. But yeah, I don't know what the Rockies are thinking. At least trade him for for a Padres comparison, like a Mackenzie Gore, Abrams, Campizano type of prospect. At least get that. At least even the Red Sox, at least they got Verdugo. Like they got something. It was dumb.
Verdugo and Downs are both
trade.
good. Yeah. I mean,
but at least it's like, all right, you got something. You know, what the heck? What are the Rockies doing? Shout out Woody Page for during the press conference being like, has this guy considered firing himself? Have you considered firing yourself after offseason? Like, shout out Woody Page. Just absolutely incredible stuff by him.
Yeah,
but that's the only good thing that honestly has happened with the Rockies this offseason is Woody Page's question in that press conference.
Yeah. Woody Page is pretty great. Last question I have for you guys. Who wins the NL West?
Go ahead.
Well, look at that little chuckle he did. He's in that.
I want to see if Bobby can say it with a straight face.
He's a super villain. He just said, you saw that. Like, come on.
The Dodgers have turned into the 1990s version of the New York Yankees. So I get that super villain comparison quite a bit.
It's that they've got Bauer, which makes them a little bit less likable, a lot less likable. A lot of people would say. The smart money is on the Dodgers still, but yeah, it's gonna be the Dodgers. But I want to wait. I want to see what happens for a couple of things early on. I would love nothing more if this is like a 105 to 102 game win type thing. I don't even know if that's the last time something like that has happened, but it's at least likely. There's at least like more of a chance. It's going to be an awesome race.
Can I just say how fun it is that we're talking about the Dodgers as this budget team when the other team we're talking about is the Padres, who spent $144 million on Eric Hosmer and then $300 million on Manny Machado and then $340 million on Fernando Tatis And you look at
Look,
the Dodgers,
man.
like, oh, but the Dodgers are paying Trevor Bauer for 2 years. Man,
Mookie
those
Betts.
evil money spenders.
Mookie Betts, he got a pretty hefty payload.
Yeah.
There's a reason that we put the dollar signs in the NL West.
Yeah.
Oh,
For our
If you look
episode
at
well
the list
done.
of
Well done.
most homegrown talent on a team, the Dodgers are right up there, man. You know, the
Padres
Dodgers.
have like 2 guys that are homegrown at this point.
Yeah,
Even
that's
Tatis
true.
technically
You've
isn't
traded
with
for
the-
everyone. Yeah,
The
he was
Dodgers
traded for the White
everybody-
Sox.
Did everything right. They draft well, even though they're always at the bottom of the draft. They develop better than anybody in baseball. And then when they do need a free agent, or they're willing to trade from their prospect depth to get guys like Mookie Betts. And when they do need a free agent to upgrade their team, they're willing to spend the money. Everything you would want in a baseball organization, it's what the Dodgers are doing. And that's why people hate them, because they wish their owner was doing the same thing.
Yeah, you can't
Especially,
disagree with that.
Especially for teams that are literally in the playoffs. Like I said, like I'm not as concerned with a Detroit team not spending money because they're rebuilding. But if you're the Rays, I don't know how you could follow that team. And I like them. I was rooting for them for obvious reasons. But I don't want to. I think Jeff tweeted about this too. We should be careful with framing them as like the underdog franchise when it's not. Because if everything made sense, like every other freaking sport works, the Tampa Bay Rays, like 5 days into the offseason, are like, come on over, Bauer, or come on over, Marcus Stroman. Like 5 days after, George Springer, like they go and get somebody. Instead, they're like, well, let's compete for 2024 now. What? Who does that? Baseball's so stupid.
Would you care for a Cy Young award-winning pitcher?
Yeah,
Take him.
they're
He's your-
like,
I gotta tell you, he says mean things on Twitter sometimes. You might not want
stop
him.
it.
And I
Stop
think
it,
I think
Jeff. It's
analytics
more than mean things on Twitter.
have almost ruined that Rays team too. They are buying way too
Dodgers,
far.
Padres, Giants, D-backs, Rockies. Yep.
Yeah,
Greg
that's the order that I have it in. But with the Dodgers, I do think they'll win out a 162 game season. But whenever it's a 5 or 7 game series,
You never know.
you never know what's going to happen. So
Just look at their track record.
we'll see come postseason. I appreciate both of you guys for coming on and talking to us about your beloved teams and the NL West all together. Javi, you go first. Tell us where everybody can find you on Twitter, Instagram, whatever you have, where they can find your show. And then Jeff, you can do the same.
Now you let me go first. Okay, thank you.
No problem. No problem.
You can follow me at Snydog, SNI. No, I'm kidding. You can follow Locked On Padres at LO_Padres. That's a lot of good memes on there. Have fun on that account. Love interacting with people and stuff. And in my account, not gonna lie, I don't tweet too much about baseball on my account. I just tweet about whatever the heck I'm in the mood for. That's at Javapeno, JAVIIPENO. Love chatting with all you guys, and this has been a blast today for sure. And for anyone's wondering, I'm just a big Chris Paul fan. I've had this hat forever. So just if anyone's wondering, these were the best uniforms ever for any team.
I thought you knew that I was a Boston guy and you wanted to rub that one in too. So
maybe. I don't know.
You can follow Locked On Dodgers on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Really easy. And I'm on Twitter at Snidog, SNIDOG. It's just my last name, but with an OG instead of an at the end. So. And I tweet about almost nothing but baseball and making fun of Javi's neck beard.
Hey, look, it's gone now though. I cut it a bit.
I don't know if gone is the word you're looking for there. Javi.
No, I know. I cut it a little bit. It's not gone, but I cut it a little bit, man. That's why I've been wearing hats a lot more lately. I don't even want you guys to see what my hair looks like now, but
I think this was a good preview for people for the NL West race for this season. It's gonna be Dodgers and Padres going back and forth, and we'll just have to see how it all turns out. But it's gonna be super exciting.
Dodgers by 16 games.
okay.
I've got them by about 10, so that's not too far off. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully we can have you guys back on later in the season, especially as it gets closer to playoff time. It would be fun to kind of revisit this conversation and see where we ended up.
Should be fun for one of us. Yeah. Happy to do it anytime.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for being on.
All right,
Thank
thanks
you.
so much.
See ya. Wow, that was a lot. We learned a lot about these two teams, and we got to discuss quite a bit about the NL West. Who do you think is going to ultimately walk away from it as the champ this year, Zach?
I agree with the Dodgers. I think they're too formidable. Like Jeff was saying, they do everything right. I mean, not only do they go out and spend huge money, they have guys that they've brought up through their system. Cody Bellinger is obviously a big example of that. The only thing I could say is that if those pieces start to break down, if Trevor Bauer doesn't show up, if Clayton Kershaw has issues, if they start to have certain injuries come out, this team might fall apart. It's going to be a big thing if that does happen. But you know, like they say, what is that saying? The tall fall the hardest, or what? That was a terrible reiteration of that saying, but the
bigger they are, the harder they fall.
Yes, there you go. Yeah.
Yep, I got you. I'll pick you up.
Thank you. So yeah, I mean, honestly, it's going to take a lot to dethrone the Dodgers, but if anyone can do it, it's the Padres. And I think whenever they signed Yu Darvish and Blake Snell, that they told the world, we mean business. I think the Manny Machado signing was like, oh, that's weird. A tiny little team is signing this guy to a huge deal. And then they just kind of took off after that. Obviously, Tatis is who he is now, and people know him. But it's going to be interesting. At the very least, the Dodgers are not going to be able to just walk out with the NL West title. They're going to have to play the Padres and win. So it's going to be at least competitive.
Like I said before the guys hopped off, over 162, I go Dodgers all day. But in a 5 or 7 game series, it's anybody's ball game. Yep. For those of you that weren't around last baseball season, Zach and I like to end our shows during baseball season with a segment that we call Clearing the Bases. And it basically what that entails is we go down the list of all the other sports news that we like to cover that maybe it's baseball related. We just don't have a lot to talk about on that topic, or it has some other sport in general that we don't want to, dedicate entire segments to. So we created this own segment, and now since it is baseball season, we can officially clear the bases once again. So, this one is baseball related though, so I kind of shouldn't have led with this one. But the Mariners CEO resigned after making some pretty boneheaded comments. I don't know if you caught up with this one because this news was just breaking like hours before we went live, but apparently he got caught up in a scandal where he admitted that he was manipulating contracts, making fun of foreign players and their accents and stuff like that. And all this leaked out, and now he's officially resigned. I think he should have been fired. He shouldn't have been allowed to quit. The Mariners should have stepped in and said, no, screw you, buddy, you're out. But it is what it is. Is this a problem? Is this something that you think is a big problem in the culture of baseball?
It seems to be that a lot of these big heads in these organizations have some issues. We've talked about the Mets having those weird allegations. Tony La Russa got a DUI like right after the White Sox hired him. I don't know what's going on with these big time guys. It seems like the players are kind of keeping their noses clean, but these guys in the front offices are having issues. I don't know what could be done or what needs to be done, but something weird's going on. It seems like these guys with this power are kind of abusing it. And like you said, this guy probably should have been fired, but at least he's not with that organization anymore. And I doubt that he gets hired by any other team from MLB. So
yeah, he'll never work in this town again. So
right.
to say. Deion Sanders made his debut as a college football coach. He got a huge win for his team, but then took a huge loss when he got back to his office and realized that he had his wallet, credit cards, watches, etc. stolen during the game. How does something like that happen?
I think there's a bad culture in that school. I don't know a whole lot about the story, but apparently someone from the school staff was trying to tell Deion that his valuables had been moved. And Deion was saying, no, my stuff got stolen. Someone straight up opened my bag and took it out. If you're moving someone's stuff, yeah, you don't go about it in that manner. You also don't let them know. Like, why would you just move someone's valuables without letting them know? I think there's some rats running around that school that need to be dealt with, and hopefully they can be dealt with, because like you said, that school just obliterated that team. And I don't know if it's thanks all in part to Deion Sanders coaching, but it obviously can't hurt to have such a legend be your coach. So I hope they can figure that out, because if he wants to leave and go to some other school, he can absolutely do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Carson Wentz was traded from the Eagles to the Colts for a 3rd-round pick in 2021 and a conditional pick in 2022. That's a 2nd-round conditional pick. It could become a 1st-round pick if Carson Wentz takes, I believe it's 75% of the snaps as a starter. May or may not happen. He is a bit injury prone, but he's already hit his first roadblock as his teammate, wide receiver Michael Pittman Jr., won't give up number 11. Is this a good on Pittman for sticking to his guns, or is this a terrible career move for a wide receiver not to yield to his quarterback?
I think it immediately puts some tension in the locker room. I don't think Pittman is as big of a name as Carson Wentz is. So in my opinion, I would give up my number to the bigger guy, especially for your quarterback. If you don't have a good quarterback as a wide receiver, you don't mean anything. You have to get the ball tossed to you and catch it by a quarterback for you to be successful. I would say this is a bad move on Pittman's point. For a new quarterback coming into your team, you want to welcome him with open arms and be as helpful as you can. This is kind of a weird thing to start their relationship off. Like, hey, he'll always kind of remember you're the guy who didn't give up your number for me.
Yeah, he's going to get like 6 targets all season. It's going to be terrible for his career. Oklahoma wide receiver, sticking with the wide receiver news, Spencer Jones went viral for picking a fight and getting his ass beat by an MMA fighter in a men's restroom. Apparently, he nearly lost his eye. He ended up having immediate surgery after the fight. And, we've all seen the video. We've all seen what happened. What did you think of that fight? And should it have been stopped by the dozens of other dudes that were in there with their phones out, taking videos of it? And, are they ultimately the ones to blame for allowing it to go on for so long?
I think the MMA guy had all of the power in that situation. He handled it however he wanted to. He could have put that guy to sleep and it could have been over. And at the same time, I think those people filming and watching had power to stop it too. And I guess they thought, maybe let's get this viral, or who the hell knows what they were thinking, but it is what it is. I do think that the MMA guy kind of has a little bit more to be at fault here for, because like I said, he has training. He knows how to choke someone out and put them unconscious and not hurt them. Whether or not he's at fault for going above and beyond that, I don't know, but it is a weird situation for sure.
I agree with Craig James. Dude started it. He got what he deserved. With that MMA guy having more training, if he would have choked him unconscious, is that a case for attempted murder because he knew what he was doing? He knew how to choke him out properly. I don't know what the legalese of that is, but I wouldn't put it past somebody for trying to make that point. I don't know. I think dude was talking trash to the wrong person, and these day and age, MMA guys, they don't always wear their affliction shirts and stuff like that. So you can't pinpoint them out of a crowd. So
Right.
be careful with who you talk to. I will say this though, don't try to pick a fight with somebody that's in tight Adidas sweats and cowboy boots. That's not a good idea.
Yeah. I just would say, don't try to pick a fight with anybody. I mean,
Yeah.
MMA and UFC is so popular now that you have no idea who's training.
And
plus-
I think the MMA guy showed great restraint because he could have really messed him up, but it looked like at one point he was just holding him there, like looking around, like who's going to pull this jackass off? Like who's going to get control of their boy? And no one did. So then whenever he tried to get up and escape, that's whenever he started throwing more bombs.
Yeah, sure. It's just a stupid situation. Like male adults probably shouldn't be fighting each other unless they're professional fighters. I just think that whole thing is dumb. And if you have to defend yourself, which I think the MMA guy was ultimately doing, was defending himself, then you got to do what you got to do. But still, nonetheless, it sucks. He probably could have just walked out of there. He probably could have just not even been in that situation in the first place. But it is what it is at this point. That's all in the past now. And this stupid video is now floating around.
Yep. Sticking with MMA, Khabib Nurmagomedov was asked about Conor McGregor, and he said that a man cannot have two primes. And Conor is 3-3 dating back to 2016, and he has lost 2 of his last 3 fights. Is Khabib right? Is Killer Conor a thing of the past?
Absolutely. I think Conor's best days are behind him. When he went off to box Floyd and made all that money, I think it all changed at that moment. If you remember when he was coming up, he still had something to prove. Even when he went for the two belt fight, he had something to prove. He wanted to be that first guy that wanted 2 belts at once.
Yep.
And after that, I mean, there's really nothing that he's been fighting for, other than just another shot at the belt or more money or whatever. Something changed in him that it will never be the same, in my opinion. He may still be a top contender. He may still be a good fighter. He probably will still make a lot of money in the UFC because people will buy his pay-per-views. But I do not think we'll ever see that original Conor again. And especially if he wants to continue being the one-trick pony that he is, when all these other guys are so good at every other fashion of the sport, and he's still just the one-shot knockout power guy, he's going to get beaten a lot.
Yep. Yeah. To Craig's point, Conor is more of a spectacle now. So, and that's true. He's going to draw in the pay-per-view buys, and that's pretty much all Dana's going to use him for. Last thing, Notre Dame opted out of the NCAA football video game until rules governing the participation of student athletes are ironed out. Will we see this from more major schools, or is this just going to be a moot point for most of them?
That's a good question. I definitely think there's a possibility of other schools doing that. I think they're all very afraid of the possibility of athletes making money. But I think that the video game can structure it to where it doesn't really affect the school. You know what I mean? The player will get paid for his likeness, and it doesn't matter what school he's at. It's his likeness no matter where he goes. So it's his to own, if you will. And their stance of not giving their team logos and all that crap to EA Sports is kind of ridiculous, because they've been in video games in the past. And now that they potentially have to fork up some money to players, that they're all freaking out about it. Everyone and their mother knows what Notre Dame is. I mean, it's not like they're obscure. They're probably one of the most popular colleges in the whole country. And this just is a weird move, in my opinion. I don't understand what they're trying to go for here. It's weird. It's a weird move. Notre Dame has made weird decisions anyway. And I don't know. It's strange. I guess time will tell whether or not other teams will do this too. But it is weird if they do end up being the only one that decides, we don't want to play ball.
I think there will be more. Craig saying that we're going to be left with an SEC and Pac-12 teams only. I mean, I guess it is what it is, but who is the SEC team going to beat on their way to the national title game if it's not Notre Dame? So
fair point.
I think we're missing something then. It'll all get ironed out before the game is released. I think ultimately whoever is making that game, whether it be EA or whatever developer is doing that, I think they're going to try to negotiate and work out these details to get teams like Notre Dame back on, because love them, hate them, whatever it is, Notre Dame is one of those premier college football teams that you want in your games. And if they're opting out, then all the other good premier teams that are sticking to their guns on that, you don't want to lose them too. So we'll see what happens. It'll be down the road, I'm sure, but it is what it is. We'll see what happens.
Yep.
You got anything else you want to add, Zach?
No, I think we're good. I cannot wait to have spring training games on my TV. I'm just biting my fingernails waiting for it. I'm super excited.
Yeah, we got 6 days until the first spring training action. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Next time we talk, we'll be able to actually talk about a live spring training game. And next week when we do come back, we're going to be talking about the American League East. That's my home division, so it's one that I'm definitely excited for, and we've got some great guests lined up for that one as well. And I can't wait to get into it. So we'll see you guys next week. Thanks a lot to Podcast City Network for having us on as their newest show in their lineup. We're definitely excited to be part of that family, and we hope that you guys enjoy the content that we're putting out. And if you're a big podcast fan, and I know you are, if you've listened to an hour and 20 minutes of us talking, then go and check out some of those great podcasts out there. We'll see you next week. Peace.